Hi, welcome! Enjoy the content and don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Michael was feeling a rush of excitement. This was the first party he and Ashley were hosting as a married couple. Their house was filled with friends, co-workers, and family members, all mingling and laughing. The atmosphere was alive with joy, conversations, and clinking glasses. It all seemed perfect. For Michael, this party represented a new chapter in his life, a new beginning. It was the life they were building together, a life filled with achievements and shared moments. As he moved around the room, greeting everyone, his eyes often found Ashley. Each time he saw her, he smiled, feeling proud of the bond they had created. They had always been the kind of couple that others envied. There was chemistry between them, an unspoken understanding that seemed to transcend words. Michael had worked hard to be the husband Ashley deserved. He gave her attention, cared for her, and always made sure to show love through small surprises and thoughtful gestures. After all, he had fought his way through painful relationships in the past, carrying scars from disappointments, betrayals, and broken promises. That's why this relationship with Ashley meant so much. It felt like a fresh start, clean and free from the ghosts of the past. The evening progressed, light and easy. Conversations flowed, laughter filled the air, and the energy was contagious. At some point, one of their friends suggested a classic party game, questions and answers. It was all in good fun. But amidst the jovial atmosphere, something happened that Michael could never have predicted, not in his worst nightmares. Ashley, glass in hand and laughter in her voice, dropped a bombshell. With a smile on her face, she casually said, "Do you guys think I cheated on Michael? Well, look, he forgave me, right, honey?" The room fell silent for a few heart-stopping seconds. Then came awkward laughter from their friends, unsure whether she was joking or being serious. Some glanced at Michael, waiting for a sign that this was just part of the game, while others turned away, uncomfortable with the tension. Michael's heart raced. His face went pale. His palms grew clammy. It was as though someone had punched him in the chest. The words had hit him unexpectedly, dry, sharp, and painful. He tried to force a smile, pretending it was nothing, but his body was shaking. His mind raced as painful memories surged. Betrayals from his past, lies he'd been fed, sleepless nights, and the suffocating weight of disappointment. All of it came crashing down like an avalanche. For a few moments, Michael tried to convince himself that it was a joke, that it was just a careless comment made in the midst of laughter and alcohol. But deep down, he couldn't shake the truth of it. The words, "I cheated on Michael," echoed in his mind like a hammer, pounding relentlessly. Each repetition made it harder to breathe. He looked at Ashley, hoping to see some indication that she didn't mean it, that it was all just part of a joke. But what he saw in her face was a silly smile, as if it were perfectly normal to joke about something so serious. His heart shattered. He forced another smile, playing along, but inside everything was falling apart. He had gotten good at pretending. Years of toxic relationships had taught him that. But this time, the pain was different because it was coming from Ashley, the person he thought he could trust above all others, the one he thought was his safe haven. The game continued, music playing, conversations resuming, but Michael wasn't really there anymore. His body was, but his mind had retreated far away. He withdrew from the crowd, avoiding eye contact, not participating in the jokes, the games, or the toasts. He answered with nods, forced smiles, and short replies. He just wanted the night to end. Ashley, seemingly unaware of the storm she had unleashed, kept laughing and talking as if nothing had happened. She seemed to pretend as if it was all fine, and that only deepened Michael's pain. His chest hurt, his stomach churned. He had this overwhelming urge to leave, to grab the car keys, drive away, and disappear. But he didn't. Instead, he held it all inside, taking deep breaths, keeping himself together. He knew that if he exploded in front of everyone, it would only make everything worse. The night dragged on. Each laugh from the guests felt like a slap to his face. Each sideways glance, a hidden knife. The discomfort was palpable, but no one dared to acknowledge it. And so, Michael endured with tearful eyes, clinging to whatever strength he had left. Every time Ashley passed by him, offering drinks, making jokes, and smiling as if nothing had changed, the lump in his throat grew tighter. When the last guest left, silence filled the house. It was as if someone had turned off the sound in the world. Michael stood still for a moment, absorbing the quiet. Ashley, oblivious to the wound she had opened, came over, her tone light and carefree. "Wow, love, that was fun, right?" Michael slowly turned to face her. His voice was dry, filled with pain and coldness, as he replied, "You have no idea what you just did." Without waiting for a response, he turned, grabbed a blanket, and threw himself on the couch. He curled up, hoping for some kind of peace in the chaos that had just exploded inside him. Ashley, now silent, stood still for a moment, her face unreadable as she processed what had just happened. She didn't grasp the gravity of the situation. Not yet. The next morning, Michael woke up early. He hadn't slept much. His head felt like it was about to explode. He brewed coffee, but as he drank it, his mind replayed the events of the night before. Every word, every expression, every uncomfortable laugh from their friends. And the more he thought about it, the more he realized it wasn't just about a poorly timed joke. It was about something much deeper. It was about boundaries, respect, and trust. Things that, once broken, don't easily mend. Ashley woke up with a smile, acting as if everything was fine, as if the tension from the night before had evaporated with the morning sun. She tried to sound natural, commenting on something trivial, likely hoping the discomfort had passed. But Michael didn't even look in her direction. When he finally spoke, his voice was direct, dry, and to the point. "It doesn't make sense to keep going like this. That was a huge lack of respect, and for me, this marriage is over." Ashley froze. She stood there, her eyes wide, unable to comprehend what was happening. For a moment, she thought he was just being dramatic, that he was exaggerating in the heat of the moment. But then she saw the seriousness in his eyes, and that's when the panic hit. She collapsed onto the couch, covering her face with her hands, crying, begging for explanations, for forgiveness. She promised it was just a joke, that she never meant to hurt him, that she loved him more than anything. She suggested therapy, counseling, trips to reset things, all the things she thought could make everything right again. But Michael stood there, unmoving. He wasn't going back this time. He had spent his life erasing himself to hold together relationships that weren't worth it. And this time he wouldn't do that. He didn't owe her any more explanations. She threw every possibility of rebuilding onto the table. Michael took a deep breath and responded firmly. The line that separates what's acceptable from what's not. You cross at it and there's no going back. The shock was so great that Ashley went into a daze. She started saying things that didn't make sense, mixing arguments, trying to pull up happy memories, joyful moments, as if that would be enough to erase what had happened. But for him, it wasn't because that was just the trigger. In fact, at that moment, he realized he'd been ignoring many signs, small discomforts, behaviors he'd previously preferred to pretend he didn't see. But now everything was exposed, laid bare, like a huge painting hanging on the wall. Still, even though he was determined, Michael agreed to the idea of therapy, not because he believed the marriage could be saved, but because he felt he needed to understand everything that was happening inside him. He needed to look at his own wounds. He needed to understand why that situation had opened such deep doors within his soul. So they scheduled the first sessions, and when they entered the therapist's office, something became clear from the start. He was there to heal. She was there to try to win him back. In the first session, they could barely look at each other. The therapist asked simple questions, but every answer seemed to tear pieces away. Michael broke down. He said he felt humiliated, betrayed, disrespected, and that it triggered old traumas from relationships where he had been deceived, betrayed, and discarded. And that as much as he knew that comment might have been just a joke, for him it was like reliving it all over again. Ashley listened in insolence, tears streaming down her face. She tried to interrupt, explain, say. She never imagined he would react like this. But the more she spoke, the clearer it became that they lived in completely different worlds. What seemed light and casual to her was a giant trigger for him. Something devastating. The following sessions only reinforced this distance. Michael began to realize that this relationship was much more worn out than he had imagined. He noticed that all along he had been trying to build a perfect relationship on top of cracks. That many times he had chosen to ignore small lacks of care, small cutting remarks, gestures that when added together showed they weren't on the same wavelength. That joke didn't destroy the marriage. It just revealed what was already crumbling inside. In one of the sessions, after a long silence, he looked at the therapist and said something he hadn't yet had the courage to admit, even to himself. "It feels like I loved her more than I loved myself, and in the end, I'm the one who got." The therapist stayed silent, hurt. The therapist stayed silent, waiting for him to continue, and Michael went on saying he was tired of always being the one who understands, who forgives, who gets it, who accepts. Tired of molding himself to fit others' expectations while his own pain was being pushed under the rug. Ashley, hearing this, burst into tears. She tried once again to hold on to what seemed to be slipping through her fingers. She said she loved him, that she would do anything, that they could start over, erase everything, rebuild. But for the first time, Michael realized that as much as he might still feel love, it wasn't enough anymore. Love alone doesn't sustain anything if it doesn't come with respect, care, empathy, and most importantly, emotional safety. They left that session insolence. They walked side by side to the car, but it was as if they were strangers. Once in the car, Ashley still tried Tosk if there was any chance if he at least considered the possibility of forgiving, of starting over. Michael took a deep breath, looked ahead and said, "I think you only realize love is over when you start loving yourself more than you love the other person." And for the first time in his life, he felt that he was finally choosing the most important person in this story, himself. When they left therapy that day, Mikkel already had total certainty about what he needed to do. There was no more room for doubts. The decision was made. As they walked to the car, Ashley looked at him with tear-filled eyes, silently trying to find some sign, any opening that indicated he might change his mind. But just looking at his face was enough to understand that this man who so often silenced himself to avoid conflict, who so often put her needs above his own, was no longer there. The Michael who accepted crumbs no longer existed. When they got home, he went straight to the bedroom, grabbed a suitcase, and started packing his things. Ashley stood frozen at the door, watching the scene in shock. She begged him to think it over, said it was a mistake, that they could try, that they could get through it. But he simply kept going. He didn't respond. He simply kept going, folding clothes, gathering documents, collecting every piece of his own life that was still in that house. When he finished, he took a deep breath, looked at her and said only, "I truly hope that one day you understand what happened here. But I can't keep living in a place where I have to doubt the person who should love me." And he left. He left behind not just a marriage, but an entire history that until recently he believed would last a lifetime. The next day he contacted his lawyer. He asked to move forward with everything. No turning back, no future conversations, no pauses. The decision was final. And for the first time, he felt a strange relief. A mix of pain, fear, anguish, but also freedom. The freedom to finally choose himself. In the days that followed, he threw himself into work. He started occupying every minute possible, as if trying to escape his own mind. But as much as he pretended everything was fine, the truth was the nights were cruel. Loneliness hit hard. The silence of the new house seemed to scream. He'd lie down, close his eyes, and immediately his mind would replay everything like an endless movie where every scene hurt more than the one before. There were nights when he questioned whether he had done the right thing. He thought about the laughter, the trips, the plans, and at the same time, it was impossible to forget what he had heard, what he had felt, the suffocating pain of that day. It was a constant conflict between missing the person he thought she was, and the pain caused by the person she had truly shown herself to be. As the days passed, he realized staying trapped in this cycle of pain and guilt wouldn't lead him anywhere. Desperate, he decided to start filling the voids. He went back to the gym. He dusted off the guitar that had been stored away for years. He started going out more, meeting new people, allowing himself to live. And in the midst of this process, he realized he was relearning to love himself. Months went by, and little by little, he began to feel whole again. Not completely, of course. Scars don't disappear, but now they didn't hurt like they used to. It was as if every broken piece was slowly being pieced back together, only this time in a much stronger way, much more solid. And it was exactly when he felt more at peace, lighter, more secure, that the unexpected happened. Ashley reappeared. She sent a message asking to talk. Michael thought about it, reflected, almost ignored it. But deep down he knew he might need to hear her out. Not for her, for him. To close the chapter once and for all. They met at the same cafe where they had shared so many moments that at the time he believed were happy. She arrived different. Her face showed sleepless nights. Her expression carried guilt, regret, and pain. She sat, took a deep breath, and began to speak. She said that since the day he left, she had been tormented. That she had tried to move on but couldn't. That the memories, the mistakes, everything weighed on her like a burden she couldn't carry anymore. And then, without beating around the bush, she let out what he deep down had always feared but somehow needed to hear. That night, what I said at the party, it wasn't just a joke. I lied. I did cheat on you. And I thought that if I said it as a joke, no one would take it seriously, not even you. I didn't know how to deal with it. I felt suffocated, made the worst choice of my life. And when I realized what I had done, I panicked. I tried to hide it, turn it into a joke, run away. But it destroyed me inside, and it destroyed you too. For a few seconds, Michael felt the world spin. It was as if time had stopped. His chest tightened. His hands went cold. But surprisingly, there was no more room for anger or pain, just silence. And in that silence, absolute clarity. He took a deep breath, held her gaze, and responded with a calmness he didn't even know existed within him. You know, I spent months wondering if I had overreacted, if I was wrong, if I had ruined a marriage over a joke. And now I understand that in reality, I left too late. She cried. She tried to seek redemption. She tried somehow to rebuild something that had been dead for a long time. She said she regretted it, that she didn't know what she was doing, that she would give anything to go back in time. But Michael knew. He knew it wasn't about her anymore. It would never be about her again. He looked into her eyes, stood up, and said with a firm but calm voice, "The worst betrayal of your life wasn't against me. It was against yourself. Because you destroyed the one thing you'll never have again, my trust. And you know what the best part is? Today, I understand that the worst betrayal someone can suffer is the one they commit against themselves when they accept much less than they deserve." He placed money on the table, thanked her, and without looking back, walked away free, light, and for the first time, truly whole. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.